Hey YouTubers, Ben here with Swift English. So we're gonna take a look at an interesting question from TOEFL Speaking Task 1 here. So do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Clearly we see this as an agree-disagree type. It is easier to be a teacher than to be a student. Okay, interesting. Use details and examples to explain your answer. Now, for the most part, if you get this kind of question, or even this same exact question, think about your experience, guys. So when you come up with these ideas, you could think about your own situation, your own life, your own memories. You could think about what the people close to you would say, friends, family. So in this particular situation, I would recommend arguing this from the side of being a student, from the student's perspective. Why? Because most of us in life have been students. We've already experienced this kind of situation, but how many of us have been teachers? Some of us have, but probably not everyone. So agreeing with it in this particular question or situation would probably be a little bit easier for you to come up with some great ideas here. So let's take a look. Agree? I have no time, let's say, so that's my reason. And my example, my story is this, so I'm gonna use myself as an example. I could just put an EX myself, or you don't have to have the EX, up to you. And then here, I'm gonna mention something about trying to get good grades and how I need to work hard for that. And then I'm gonna get into examples of that like homework and etc, right? Tests, projects, and so on. And this is gonna help me come up with my response. So these are my notes here. So here we see, well, I definitely agree that, so this is the opinion phrase, it's much easier being a teacher than being a student. Now here, I changed this, so to be, I kind of conjugated it as being. So you don't have to do this. You could say to be a teacher, to be a student, that's fine. You could keep it the same, or if you want to make it a little bit advanced and paraphrase the grammar, you could use this ing form, this continuous form. Because of time-related issues, there we go. So I explicitly mentioned my reason here. I decided to not separate this part as a separate sentence. I could say this is mainly because, this is primarily because, that's fine too. I just wanted to do something new this time around. Now here, instead of going into it by saying, for example, da-da-da, or like da-da-da, I decided to do something a little different. So here I use take myself as an example. So there are some situations where you could do this. It's a really flexible phrase, and you'll encounter this phrase when you approach task force speaking sometimes. Sometimes you may use it, sometimes you might not, but it's good to be familiar with this kind of phrase. Because I want to get good grades and achieve a high academic performance, so this is like the goal here, right? I really have to work hard. Okay, makes sense, right? Now, I want to kind of, elaborate on this point by maybe giving them a concrete example. So here, I mentioned like, you could say, I mean, you could say, for example, for instance, to illustrate, all of them are absolutely fine. Like, I need to spend a ton of time on my homework, projects, and studying for those tricky exams. So a little bit of topic vocabulary here and there. And I just add this like those tricky exams to make it a little bit more specific, a little bit more descriptive. They love adjectives. So if you can, find an excuse to kind of exaggerate when possible. Now here I'm creating this contrast effect. While I love watching movies or hanging out with friends, I simply don't have enough time for any of that. Okay, great. Now here, I'm gonna use this to show why I don't support the opposite side, the opposite opinion. So this time I'm not using an if sentence, a conditional statement. I'm using on the other hand to show the opposite effect. So on the other hand, it's kind of like however. On the other hand, teachers and other kinds of instructors. And just adding this bit here is a perfect excuse to boost my word count. I don't have to have this. I could easily say teachers have some da-da-da. But by just having this and other kinds of instructors, it's just a cheap, easy, simple, effective way to add more words to my task 1 speaking response, which is sometimes good for the score. Have some free time available after lessons or during vacation, which makes being a teacher much easier. And here I'm using the which to kind of expand into that point again, just to reiterate it. All right, now what if you went with the opposite choice, the opposite opinion? Is it possible? Absolutely. Anything's possible in TOEFL Speaking Task 1. So here, I personally don't like this choice because it's a little bit harder for most people for the reason I mentioned, earlier, a few minutes ago, because most of us have already been students at some point, at some stage in our lives. But how many of us have been teachers? Some of us, not all of us. So that's why I think, this choice is just a little bit harder for most test takers. So here I have disagree. My reason here was you have to know the material better. I know this looks a little bit ugly here, but I tried to give you an example of writing short notes, okay? Because on the exam, you only get 15 seconds to prepare. It's not a lot of time, so if you can really get used to some random symbols, reductions, and abbreviations of your own, it's better for you. So know the material better, that's the problem. So for example, they have to go through this training, right? It's not that easy. So this is my symbol for not, right? X and easy. I just put easy. It's just simpler. So they have to, understand the material and also actually be able to explain it really well. So these chunks of words and phrases are going to help me come up with my sentences here for the most part. Sometimes though, you're going to have to come up with a few additional ones on your own. It's just the way it is. 15 seconds isn't time for us to write down everything in our notes. It's just a good head start. Well, so okay, here the opinions explicitly mentioned. So imagine you're speaking this. Well, I definitely disagree that it's easier to be a teacher than student because teachers have to know the material that they teach much better than their students. Okay, so now here I'm doing something a little bit different. So instead of like, or for example, I just wanted to show you another way you could introduce a specific example here. So you could use It's a very casual, informal way to do that. Natives use this kind of phrase all the time in informal situations, in speaking related situations, conversations. So teachers have to undergo, so that's like experience, it's a stronger word for it, a special kind of training in order to work as instructors. So here I didn't want to say teachers again. I could, but I just wanted to avoid that repetition, that redundancy, so I just use a synonym here. It's not that simple. Here I have a little reaction. Again, if you've seen my previous clips, anytime you have these little emotional quips or reactions, they're an excellent way just to get an easy detail, an easy sentence to boost that word count. This is because they have to not only, so this is a tricky structure to use, but it's an excellent conjunction if you can pull this off. So not only understand the content that they're supposed to teach. So here I paraphrase material as content, right? I just wanted to avoid that repetition, but also explain the lessons in a clear and concise manner so that students understand the concepts really well. Okay, there we go. That's the takeaway point. Now here I'm gonna wrap it up with an if sentence. If teachers only have a basic understanding of the lesson content, they won't succeed. And now you're done. So if you did have maybe a second or two for your task 1 response, you could say, that's my view, that's my opinion, just to boost your word count. If you didn't have time, it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in more future clips.